Welcome to This Explainer. Let's dive right in. Picture this. The ancient city of Ajmer is just waking up. The morning light hits the towering stone of Taragar Fort, and there stands a young king, Prithviraj Chauhan, looking out over his massive kingdom. Now, this isn't just a regular Tuesday morning. We're actually looking at the dawn of a completely defining era in Indian history. We're stepping right into the late 12th century, a time of wildly shifting alliances, fiercely contested borders, and really monumental empires. For a young guy inheriting such a massive and complex domain, the challenges are, frankly, immense, and an epic historical journey is just about to kick off.
What's really striking here is the immediate sense of authority he projects. It's kind of like this quiet calm right before a massive storm. We aren't just looking at some young man who happened to inherit a crown, we're looking at a ruler who has fully leaned into his power and embraced the incredible weight of his lineage. You see, in the Rajput tradition, a king had a lot on his plate. He was expected to be a protector, a fierce warrior, and literally a divine representative of justice on earth. Those fluttering banners out there, they represent thousands upon thousands of lives that depend entirely on his decisions. But you have to wonder, how exactly does a young leader, barely even out of his teens, get to this level of unwavering confidence?
Section 1. Forging a Rajput warrior. The intense disciplines of a young king.
Well, that growing strength absolutely wasn't handed to him on a silver platter. It was relentlessly forged. Taking on the mantle of a Rajput ruler meant you had to achieve total mastery over some seriously elite martial disciplines. We're talking about mastering the heavy, curved traditional swords, executing incredibly precise spear combat, becoming an expert on horseback to actually lead cavalry, and perfecting advanced archery to strike from a distance. Just imagine the grueling hours spent out there in the flying dust alongside fiercely determined veteran warriors, practicing every single strike until it was perfect. This wasn't just your standard physical fitness routine. No, this was the deliberate daily construction of a living weapon. He was taught to push through pain, anticipate exactly what his enemy would do, and strike with lethal precision. That way, when the time finally came, his body would just take over on pure, honed instinct.
Section 2. The statesman and strategist, balancing raw power with deep empathy.
But here's the thing. Raw military power alone is never going to hold a kingdom together. His leadership required this brilliant kind of dual nature. Down on the ground, he absolutely refused to just hide away behind the high walls of his forts. Instead, he was out there, riding through the villages, the loud, busy marketplaces, and the local farmlands. He was talking face-to-face with farmers, merchants, and soldiers, actually listening to their daily concerns and personally promising them justice. It was a super grounded approach that earned him some major respect. But then, back at the magnificent Ajmer Palace, he completely transformed into a high-level tactician. He'd convene the royal court, dig into complex intelligence reports about emerging threats, and pore over vast maps. And he did all this under the super proud watch of his mother and regent, Queen Karporetta Devi. So he was literally a man of the people in the morning and the master of the war room by the afternoon.
Section 3. The first test. The march to war.
Okay, so all that meticulous preparation, the exhausting training in the dirt, the endless map reading back at the palace, it was suddenly put to the ultimate test. A rebellious regional ruler popped up, directly threatening the peace and stability of the whole realm. And you can almost feel the ground shaking here as literally thousands of Rajput cavalry advance in total unison across the plains. Picture the sun just glinting right off their armor, accompanied by the deafening roar of the charge. Make no mistake, this was not some tiny little border skirmish. This was a massive, highly coordinated flex of the kingdom's might designed to send one very clear message. The young lion of Ajmer is absolutely not someone you want to test.
And the sheer cinematic scale of this battlefield, it's both terrifying and completely awe-inspiring. You've got these massive war elephants steadily marching forward. Honestly, they were essentially the heavy tanks of the ancient world. Just their immense size alone was enough to break enemy lines and completely shatter a rival army's morale. And layering over all that violent crashing of metal and screaming soldiers, you have these heavy, rhythmic battle drums echoing across the plains. They kept the troops perfectly in formation while striking absolute terror into the opposition. It was basically an orchestrated symphony of warfare, a totally chaotic yet deeply strategic environment, all being led by a king who had quite literally prepared his entire life for this exact moment.
Section 4. Victory and the Horizon. The aftermath of the campaign.
Now, if you want proof of how well he commanded his forces, just look at how fast this all went down. Day 1, the campaign officially begins, and this massive army marches right out of the capital. Incredibly, it only took until Day 5 to secure a totally decisive victory. The battlefield was cleared, the enemy scattered, and the rebel threat was just instantly neutralized. By Day 10, they're making their triumphant return. And he rides back into Ajmer not just as some guy who inherited a fancy title, but as a proven protector who earned his crown in blood. The whole city just erupted. They were showering their victorious leader with flower petals from the rooftops, beating drums in the streets, and proudly waving these brilliant saffron flags everywhere. It was this rare, beautifully unified moment of pure euphoria for the entire kingdom.
But as is usually the case, when those daytime celebrations slowly start to wind down, the atmosphere really shifts. Night falls over Targar Fort, and it sits there silently beneath this huge, star-filled sky. Stepping away from all those cheering crowds and the warmth of the victory feasts, the young king stands completely alone up on the high fortress walls, just staring out at the distant, quiet horizon. You know, there's always a lingering kind of isolation in leadership. It's this deep, sobering awareness that one single victory definitely doesn't guarantee lasting peace in such a volatile world.
Which leaves us with a pretty massive question. When a young king swats away his very first threat with such effortless precision, what greater, far more terrifying challenges is that dark horizon hiding? Standing out there under the stars, he absolutely knows this was just the warm-up. The real tests of his reign, we're talking monumental, historical storms with foreign invaders and massive clashing empires, they are brewing just beyond the edge of his vision. Thank you so much for joining me for this explainer. I highly encourage you to keep diving into the history of the Rajput lion to find out exactly what came crawling out from the shadows of that horizon.